We're back to the Purple Bear podcast here with Collin.
I love that title, man.
Let's talk about your next work. You're on the air. That was quite a ride too.
Yeah, what was that, 2017, 2018?
I think it said 2018 for that one.
Yeah, so that was the first one I did under Nihilist Media. So what'd you think?
That was very abrasive at first, but I think you're supposed to get that from the character. Mm-hmm. And then it slowly humbles him, and you find out at the end, I won't say it, not to spoil anything.
Not to spoil this 8-year-old movie, right? 7-year-old movie, but yeah.
I don't know, there might be some new people out there that see your work. But the general outline is you're seeing through a third perspective, I guess, a radio host that just thinks he's the shit, owns his whole attitude and persona of being a douchebag, and he's always right. And he's just, I guess, listening to the callers, but not really hearing what they're saying and saying, I'm better than you, your opinion sucks.
Yeah.
Until the end where he gets his final caller and things start to look and change around in the other direction for him.
Yeah. What's that classic? I want to say it goes back to the severed leg from the 1970s, but it's that classic horror trope of the menacing caller on the phone. Yeah. Have you ever seen Black Christmas?
I haven't.
Highly recommend it. I want to say 74, and John Carpenter saw it and was so moved by it. He was like, I want to make a sequel to this, but it's set on Halloween, and he couldn't get the rights to it. And then somebody said, like, John, there's nothing you don't need the rights from the people who made Black Christmas in order to make a slasher movie called Halloween. And then he made Halloween. So that goes back to an old trope. But yeah, there's an interview with Howard Stern from a long time ago where he said, I'm not a disc jockey. I'm kind of a radio personality, but really I'm God's gift to radio. And that's Max. That's Max's entire outlook on himself is prime Howard Stern, but with more of a chip on his shoulder because Howard Stern won, and nobody gives a shit about Max Tanner except for Max Tanner.
You could also, I guess, to add to this character, he's very selfish. And he leaves, I guess, the only other character there's 3 characters total technically, right?
3 characters on screen, and then a bunch of voice actors. But I would say, I don't know, man. Like 95% of that movie is just Chris Salvi's face. Like he is the character. The space itself, I kind of treated as its own character from the beginning. We knew that had to be important. But yeah, then there's the menacing caller, and then the woman pleading for Max to do the right thing, or the menacing caller is going to kill her.
And then his buddy in the booth, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Marco.
Yep.
At the time, Marco Aguirre, now Marco Sandoval.
So we don't really get a lot of their backstory, but long story short, he's getting a big opportunity. He's full of himself. And he said that MTV is going to start his own show, but he's leaving his friend in the booth behind, right?
Yeah, that's the implication. I think what he says is, I didn't even think to ask about you. And you get the sense that they've been working together for a long time in tandem. And, it doesn't fully come through in the short, but Max is, I think, barely knows how to even operate a radio station, whereas the sound boy, his little lackey, is the one finding the callers, transferring them through, muting the swears, doing literally everything. But he's just it's like Max is like a shitty bartender who doesn't even learn the names of the bar backs, or the back servers. You know what I'm saying? Just a right scumbag. But what's really important to that one is the time that it was made, which is 1999. This is I think MTV had a Woodstock 1999, which I don't know if you know anything about, was just a colossal disaster. But that was that time of the edgy douchebag, Fred Durst, obviously. That was when Slim Shady first came out and everything. Love Eminem, but I love Fred Durst too. Nothing against them, but like Korn and new metal and all that. And Max is like this relic from like the grunge movement that failed, and since then he's just been trying to just become like more as his reach, as his outlook becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, he just gets louder and louder and louder and just more insufferable. What do you let's play a game. What do you think that one is about symbolically?
I feel like it's, I don't know symbolically, but it's like a revenge kind of thing.
Well, revenge is definitely an aspect of it. For me, I've been, and I mean, I'm looking at a fucking microphone right now, is like kind of that idea of a microphone representing truth or like a false truth. And I think the story of You're on the Air is about the truth coming out. But obviously nothing to do with you starting a podcast, but there are a lot of people, Howard Stern is an obvious one from the 90s, but there are a lot of people that, who want to be a professional truth speaker, who want to be talking into a microphone and telling people this is the way that it is, and that's Max. Is like, he doesn't even listen to what people are saying. It's all about his own fucking manifesto, and it's about proving his state of the world, or how he views the world, but also how he views himself as truth. There are a lot of people like that out there. In 2017, when the thing was written, it was definitely very true. Now 2025, I feel like it's even more true. People yelling into microphones being like, the world is like this, it's going to hell because of these people, or I am this person, I am a good person, because I am telling you that I'm a good person, I'm selling that to you. And it's the people that do that are the ones you want to be most suspicious of, because I think that people that are wise or have good advice or anything, they don't seek to yell into a microphone, And I think that's where the idea of You're on the Air comes from, in its essence.
And then I don't know if this is another part of symbolism, but he keeps his headphones on until the very end, where the last caller yells at him, and then he rips the headphones off and throws them.
Yeah, it rips out, and the audio of the girl being tortured and the guy screaming at him starts coming in through like the old intercom above him. And it's, I guess, to be lazy, it just symbolizes the voice of God. But it's that idea that he has a rhythm to the way that he does his show, where he gets people, often morons, to come on and say some stupid shit, which is the same thing Stern did in the 90s. And then he mutes them. He controls like the narrative literally by being able to mute them, and then he can yell over them, and it's that idea of not making the right, not making a cohesive argument. If he disagrees with something, it's just yelling over people. And, I mean, we all know, you put on the news today, it's just people screaming at each other. Yep. And for me, like, I feel like if you're trying to talk about something, whether it's politics or just life, the person that just resorts to yelling at other people to try to shut them up, to be heard, that's usually like the argument you can discount first, because it's like, all right, this person is not safe and secure in what they believe. When the cord gets ripped out and it starts coming in above him, he can't mute it anymore. Now, technically, I guess he could, but it's so overwhelming and he's so shell-shocked. His ability to control this the way that he controls his other callers is now gone.
Yep.
So,
and the topic of the last caller is he's going to harm someone allegedly, and he has to stay on the phone until the police can track him for about 10 minutes, right?
That old trope. Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually work that way, but I believe that's ripped straight out of the slasher movie Black Christmas as well. It's a great movie, by the way. You should check that one out.
Check it out. Yeah. Not to change the subject, but this was a movie you produced on, correct? Mm-hmm. All right. Is there more that you want to talk about with that? Because I feel like I'm missing a whole lot.
Oh God, You're on the Air was so long ago. That was one where I was like, yeah, I don't know. Somehow I gassed myself up for like the year leading up to that, where I'm like, I can be a producer at this point because I've been on enough sets, usually as an assistant director, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I know the type of movie I want to see because it's the type of movie I like to, or the type of movie I like to watch is the type of movie I want to make, and I'm like, yeah, I can do this. And as a producer, I feel like I bullshitted my entire way through the whole process. But you know, you have the set design in that, which is fantastic. I grew up with my friend Dana Tarr, who's just an amazing art director, production designer, and photographer. And he's a family friend of mine. And you know, we had talked, you know, years leading up to it when I'm first like transferring to film school and stuff, and like, you know, talking about like different movies and stuff, and like I'm seeing his stuff all over the internet, and it's this colorful and like abrasive and sexualized sort of. It was great. I mean, I was completely out of my element, but I knew when I landed on this, when I got the script, it was I knew that the set needed to kind of be its own character and needed to be a time capsule into 1999, which, how old are you?
30.
30. Do you remember 1999 at all?
Very little.
1999 is one of the first years that I remember. So it's near and dear to me. You know, the WWF and fucking Pokemon and Hey Arnold and maybe Courage the Cowardly Dog. I don't know. Rugrats.
Yeah,
like
that was stuff around that time.
All the things that I think subconsciously inspired me as a storyteller. It all comes back to 1997, 98, 99. Those are the first years I really remember. And I'm like, I want to walk into this room and feel like we're back in this obnoxious, abrasive sort of thing. And basically I just went to Dana and I'm like, I can get you X amount of money, and yeah, what can we do? And he was like, cool, man, yeah, no, I fuck with this. And I feel like he fucking did this huge chunk of the movie just on his own. I was his assistant, I guess, but like as the artist, like he made that character almost like an actor does. I also knew we needed an abrasive personality. You know, if we don't nail the casting of Max, why even make the fucking movie? Mm-hmm. And I don't know what I did in another life to deserve Chris Salvi for both good and bad, but I happened upon Chris Salvi, and you know he showed up. He didn't know his sides to the audition. He was like, there were sides. I didn't get sides. We auditioned like 15 different Maxes, and he was the only one that apparently didn't get sides. I don't know. Maybe he wasn't prepared.
What are sides for?
Yeah, so you'll send a monologue or a scene from the film to an actor to have them come to prepare and then come to audition. Usually, I mean, with You're on the Air, it's easy. I'd imagine the sides were just the first page of his, you know, listen up, you mindless sheep, fucking Columbine just happened, fucking Bill Clinton's getting his fucking dick sucked, you know, bop, 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 bop. That was probably what the sides were for that one. You send it to people, you say nothing, you let them interpret the character, they come in with their opinion on how the character should sound, and you say, okay, that was great, and then you usually give them one or two adjustments where it's like, you know, now play it like, you know, more assertive, or, you know, now play it more soft-spoken and seductive if you can. And you see how they respond to that. And that's how you know if they're ready to, you know, move to round two. So Chris didn't have sides, so he just showed up. And he was just like, yeah, I'm here for this fucking, I'm a radio host. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Yeah, I said radio host, fucking 1999, I'm here. Yeah, I'm your guy. And he's like, whose dick do I got to suck for this fucking role? And it's like, all right, well, you have the sides. No, I don't. I don't. Nobody sent me sides. I'm like, every other actor was ready. So he takes the sides and he's just like, listen up, you fucking minor, blah, 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 blah. And then he sees on the script like greasy hair, fucking disheveled looking scumbag. Hey, that's me. That's me. No, I'm your guy. I'm your guy. And he talked for 30 minutes about nonsense. He talked about like how Courtney Love totally killed Kurt Cobain and just all this stuff. And he left, and I was like, I think that's the guy. I think that's the guy. So I gave him the call back. We broke into Fitchburg State University to do the callbacks. I don't know if my student ID still worked at the time, even though I hadn't been there in years. But I just went into one of the theaters because you remember there was like 6 different theaters on that tiny campus. But I got one of the doors open and we just got on stage. I knew how to do all the lighting because my old theater professor had taught me how to do the lighting. So I was able to light the stage on my own just randomly. And we had the actors come in for their callbacks. And Salvi shows up. At this point, he has read the full script. And it's like, all right, man, you ready? Action. And he just goes, and he went fucking 12 out of 10, broke down sobbing, hysterical. It was unbelievable. And I was like, shit, man, I knew there was something here with this guy, but I didn't know it was like that, to the point that I like had to like put my arm around him. And I'm like, dude, that was fucking great. Can you please stop crying? Like, it's over. It's over. And I'm like, all right, let's move to phase 2. This time, fuck the script. I want to see how you guys improvise, because these radio shows and everything, Howard Stern, even WWF, I think, was always an influence. And, at that time anyway, there was a lot of times where they would start like a Monday Night Raw, and they're like, all right, Stone Cold starts, the episode starts with Stone Cold gets in the ring with a microphone, and he just goes for 5 minutes. There was no script. It was just Austin, figure it out. And I think that I wanted an element of that where I'm like, okay, so like in the script, let's say right here, nothing happened. Right here is the line where Max breaks and he starts confessing things he didn't want to confess on the air. And I'm like, here, pretend you don't know what this guy's talking about when he accuses you of this. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah, just deny it. And then to the potential menacing callers, the caller number 3s, and it's like, here's all the information you need. We're going off script. Make him confess. Do it. Make him confess. And they're like, let's just see what happens. And I remember I was filming it, like I think on my cell phone or on one of my DSLRs. And I remember Chris looked at me and he was like, so I can fucking say whatever the hell I want. I don't have to stick to the script. And I'm like, that's what I said. And we just went, and he fucked with multiple callers for 10 minutes each, where I think it's, you got to keep them on the line for 10 minutes and then the cops fucking find them. I think that's how we did the game, where he was confessing to things, but not the big confession in the movie, but he was confessing to other things. And they would try to, like, he would get their attention onto that, where they're trying to accuse him of like being a drug addict, but who cares if he's on drugs? And he got them on that. And then he was bouncing around to different things. And then he started making just batshit crazy things. He was talking about like just pulling different pieces of 90s media out of his ass and throwing it at these poor callers. And they were just overwhelmed. And they were just like, I don't even know what to say. And then it's like, all right, 10 minutes, the cops are kicking in the doors, they're coming and they're going to get you. They bring you to jail. And they were just stone faced. And then it's like, all right, cut. And I think there were 2 finalists for that. And they were both like, dude, I'm so sorry. I don't know. And I'm like, don't be sorry. You just fucking lost to an improv genius. Like, I'm like, where the fuck did that come from? So yeah, we found the right Max.
Let's dive real quickly into how you met Chris Salvi, because he's such a big role in all of your work.
All right. So it's 2016, 2017, and I'm calling myself a producer. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I have no idea. I was working, I think, as an assistant director and casting director with a friend of mine. I'm not going to name him because I don't know how he'll feel about this.
Yeah.
But he's trying to get a pilot going for Netflix was really taking off at the time. That's how long ago this was. He's trying to get a pilot together, and he's lining up auditions, and he's like asking me if I had access to like anywhere in Boston, any sort of office, or he's like, I'd settle for someone's apartment, but like it kind of gives a bad vibe, especially if you're auditioning actresses and stuff. You don't want to like be like, all right, here's my friend's dirty apartment. Like then there's a camera up and everything, and it's like sit right there and start crying, for the sides. He's like, I want somewhere really professional in Boston, and I'm like, I'm 24 years old. I can't help you there. And then he comes back to me and he was like, I was thinking in the Boston Public Library, and I'm like, yeah, I mean that's great. I mean that's right downtown, but I'm pretty sure all those spaces cost money. And he was like, yeah, they do, but like, what if we just post it up in one of the lobbies? What are they going to do? Kick us out? And I was like, I don't know, man. Let's find out. And I'm like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to watch this kid get dragged out by security. And he's just like, no, you don't understand. I'm an artist. Leave me alone. So I'm like, I got to fucking see that. I'm like, dude, I'll see you tomorrow at 11. I think that's a great idea. Didn't happen. It didn't happen. The kid was completely right, because here's the thing with public libraries. They're public libraries. They're paid for with our tax money. So we do fund them. And yeah, there are office rooms you can rent out for an absurd amount of money. But the Boston Public Library is fucking huge. And there are so many lobbies and corridors. And, we just found a quiet one, posted up in there all day, and just had people in and out doing their readings, and nobody bothered us. And I think that comes back to that whole, DIY, do-it-yourself, indie filmmaker thing they always talk about, where it's like, just fucking create your own destiny. Like, don't, just because there's a rule against it. Even with that, I don't even know if there is a rule against it, but it's like, just fucking do it. So we had full auditions there, and it was totally cool, as it felt professional. And we did that for a while. So then it's, a few months later, I'm sending up auditions for You're on the Air, and I'm like, well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to set it up at the library. And for the most part, it went equally as well. There was one security guard who got like annoyed, and as somebody who has worked security as like a side hustle for 3 years, is like, a lot of security guards are very fragile and very easily offended. It's important to remember with security guards, they don't have any authority. I'm very clear about that. The most they can do is call the police on you, just like anybody else. Other than one guy giving us a hard time, it was totally cool. But again, Boston, downtown area, you see a lot of characters, and we're sitting there and we're waiting for this next guy, this Chris Salvi guy. He had emailed me, I think the day before, where he was like, hey man, could I just fucking do this online and just fucking send it in? And I'm like, absolutely not. No, we're doing a full audition. This is a very professional thing. I didn't lecture him, but I'm like, absolutely not, because we got 15 other people that showed up. So you want the role, you got to show up. We're sitting there. I say he's supposed to be there at 11:30. It's 11:45. And I'm like, where is this asshole? Where's this fucking guy? And in front of me, there was this homeless looking man reading a book, because it's a lobby. There are people around and stuff. And Mark, the director, was like, I think that's the fucking dude. And I'm like, that dude? Nah. Because I'm like, that dude is white. And I'm like, the headshot I have is of a man who's very clearly Hispanic. And I'm like, Salvi that's Italian, so I guess it's possible. And I'm like, that's not the guy. And he's like, go talk to him. I'm like, I'm not going to talk to a homeless man in Boston. I'm not doing that. And he's like, dude, that's the guy. And I'm like, how sure are you? And he's like, dude, like 80% sure. And I'm like, okay. Now he's not gonna go talk to him. I'm gonna get up and I go over. He's there. He's reading like fucking War and Peace or some shit or fucking Clockwork Orange. I don't fucking know. He's got a suit jacket on, and underneath it is a hoodie, and he's got like long ass hair. He looks like Charles Manson. And I'm like, excuse me, sir. He's like, what do you want? I'm like, you're not here for an audition or something. And he's like, fuck no. An audition for what? And I'm like, oh, dude, I'm sorry. I thought you were the guy, and I came over, and he's like, and now you feel like a giant fucking asshole. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And I look back, and Mark's just fucking face palming, looking like a jackass. And I'm like, I'm fucking 80% sure my ass. And I'm like, all right, I'm sorry to disturb you. And he's like, what are you making some fucking commercial or something, a movie or something? I'm like, yeah, it's a short film, everything. He's like, and I look like the fucking guy, so you're saying I should audition, right? And I'm like, well, you kind of have the abrasive attitude, so you know, I could see that. And he was like, wait a minute, is this guy's name Max Tanner? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, oh, the audition, yeah, I'm here for that. And then comes over and sits down, and he's like, yeah, fucking radio DJ. I came in from Fitchburg. And I was like, I'm like, you're from Fitchburg? And I'm like, I went to Fitchburg State. And he's like, no fucking shit, man. He's like, I refuse to work on those shitheads fucking movies anymore because they're all fucking assholes. And I'm like, oh, I've had some bad experiences on some student films. And he's like, yeah, do you know this guy? What about this guy? And I'm like, yeah, all those dudes are like 3 to 4 years older than me. So, yeah, I mean, I know the names, but no. And he's like, yeah, all fucking pieces of shit. Fucking horrible fucking things. So what are we doing here? You know, oh, I don't have sides. No, I don't. I saw radio DJ, fucking movie, fucking paid. Yeah, I'm here. Whose dick do I gotta suck? And I'm like, you drove here from Fitchburg to downtown Boston for a role that you didn't think there were sides for. It's fucking dude fucking lied to me. He definitely knew. He just didn't prepare. And he just went off for fucking 30 minutes, and he leaves. And I'm like, I think that's the guy. And the Mark looked at me and he was like, absolutely fucking not. And I'm like, well, he's getting a call back. Biggest mistake of my life.
If there's not any more you want to say about You're on the Air, let's dive back into who you are and your journey through coming to be a producer and a director.
My journey. All right. What do you want to know about my journey?
When would you say you officially started being a director or a producer?
When I was... So my sister is 6 years older than me. And when I was 3 or 4, you know, obviously all I wanted to do was get to hang out like with her in her room and like watch Nickelodeon or whatever. And she's always had a love and fascination of horror films like me and like my mom. And their favorite, and my mom's favorite to this day is Halloween, you know, Michael Myers. And we live in a big creepy house, as you can see. Used to be significantly less well lit, and she would let me hang out with her on the condition that when we went downstairs for like candy or to get snacks, I always had to be behind her. Yeah, I'm 4 years old. She explained to me who Michael Myers was, and with these movies, he always comes up behind you with the butcher's knife, you know. And she's like, "If you want to hang out with me,
you have to be sacrificed."
Yeah. You're the way that I know that he's behind me." And I agreed because I was a kid, and we'd come downstairs, and then like usually when we're walking back up the stairs to her room, it's very dark there, and sort of silhouetted in the moonlight through my whole childhood in the hallway was my mom's collection of porcelain dolls, which she would not move. And we'd be walking up, and my sister would get slower and slower going up the stairs, and she'd be like, "Do you hear that? Wait, do you hear that? Oh my God. Shh, shh, shh. Do you hear that?" And I'd be like, "What the fuck?" You know. And she also occasionally used to try to lock me in the basement. So anyway, she's the oldest, then 6 years, then me, and then my cousin Liam's 2 years younger than me. And then after that, it's just a ton of cousins. 2 more boys, 2 years younger than Liam, 3 years younger than Liam. So outside of Morgan, I was the oldest of the extended family. And I took all that she used to do to me, and I paid it back to my cousins tenfold. And me and Liam, that was my best friend as a kid. He was like a brother to me. And we would have the big kid room every time there was, 4th of July or, a get together. And all like the younger cousins, they just wanted to sleep in the big kid room with me and Liam. And we had conditions. You had to listen to our ghost stories. And with all the lights out, me and Liam would just make up stories, pulling just different things. Do you remember, what was it? Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark?
Yep.
Yeah. So I want to say it was like Harold was like the fucking, the scarecrow that like came to life and then skinned one of the farmers and took his place or something. We used to read those to each other, or we'd read them in school. And then, 4th of July was like the big thing in my cousin's house. So I'd read these stories, or somebody would tell me something, and like then it'd be months building up to 4th of July when I could take an idea like that and just do my own thing and drag it out at my younger cousins. And the way that it usually worked is me and Liam would gang up on my cousin Atticus, who was like a year or 2 younger than Liam, because he was the one who's like so scared, but like he was a trooper. He toughed it out, but he was always, we would just be riffing and just coming up with different things at him. And he would be like, go on. And the victim in every story always ended up looking exactly like Atticus, and fucking tormented this poor kid. And almost every night would then end with trying to get him to break. And then we would just see a flash in like the corner of the room as Liam's little brother, my cousin Pat, would just get up sobbing. We didn't even know he was awake, and just sprinting down the stairs, "Mama, mama, 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 mama." And then you just hear my aunt like, "Jesus Christ, again." And then the next morning it was the same thing. "You're not sleeping in there." "Oh, but mama, please." "No, you're not sleeping in there because they're evil. Those boys are evil and they're going to torment you." And he's like, "Oh, but mama, please." And then she would relent, and then the same thing would happen again. That's when I became a filmmaker. I didn't realize it at the time, but that's really all that it is. That's all that there is to storytelling, is to kind of have a direction, a point, and then everything else is just reinforcing that point. It started with trying to get my cousin Atticus to piss himself out of fright, and it's, I guess, grown from there. I was an English major at UMass Dartmouth for the first year or two I was in college, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. My sister was a journalist and then an editor, so she had a career through English, but I knew I didn't want to do that stuff. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I think one day it just sort of hit me. I had a friend who went to Fitchburg State as a film major, and I was always very fascinated, and I was always picking his brain about it because I didn't know him to have any sort of technical skills in it. And I thought that to get into like that, it was like to get into art school, you need to have you had to know how to use a camera, you had to have a reel, you had to, I didn't know what a fucking 35 millimeter lens was at the time, but you didn't need any of that stuff to get in. and I was able to transfer in because miraculously I had really good grades in when I went to UMass. I had a professor, I want to say is Professor Waxler, who taught Jewish literature. And the way that I would register for classes at UMass was I would go on ratemyprofessor.com and I would find the professors with the highest ratings. Usually because it was the professors that like didn't give a shit or their classes were easy. I would register for the classes and then I would forget about it and then I would check it before the semester started. And I remember seeing I had Jewish literature and I was like, why the fuck did I take this? And I went back on Rate My Professor and this dude had like a perfect score and it's people saying this class changed my life. And I was like, what the fuck? And a lot of people were like, I'm not Jewish, but this class changed my life. This is the greatest professor I ever had. And his class was a series of like reading like, Elie Wiesel, obviously, and a lot of the books. I still have a lot of the books upstairs, but it was the idea of the structure of a story. A lot of them were fictional or semi-autobiographical about like Jewish immigrants finding their place in America, the American dream. Obviously, Elie Wiesel with Night. But his formula was always the same with storytelling, but also with life. He's like there are kind of three stages. You have your formative years as a kid where your home becomes a very important part of your identity, and that's kind of act one of any movie. You know, Luke Skywalker is the farmer, the disgruntled farmer. He wants more out of his life, but his day to day is very droll and boring. And then it's the change happens. The call to adventure, whether it is a good thing or a bad thing, whether you can control that change. You know, in Luke Skywalker's case, his aunt and uncle get murdered, so he goes off to to learn to be a Jedi. But in Elie Wiesel, it's being rounded up into ghettos and then being sent to concentration camps, and he's using this story to be able to apply it to fictional narratives, but to also be able to apply it to the fucking Holocaust. And then he's saying like, and then in life and in stories, after the turmoil, you settle down in some place as an adult and you form a new home, a new reality that you kind of chose yourself. You know, ideally chose yourself, at least to however you could. But he's like, oftentimes that new home will reflect the previous home, even if you ended up hating it. And applied it to fictional stories, applied it to the Holocaust, and then one of the final books we read was written by him. And it was the true story of his son dying in the 90s, who went to UMass Amherst, was like a 4.0 student, and gets out and is doing all the things that he's supposed to be doing in his career and all that. And they think like he's doing great. And then he gets, or they find out that he's addicted to heroin. And then it's him trying to, bringing his son back and forth to rehab and like arguing over health insurance with people and talking about how somebody once said like that if it was up to her, fucking junkies like him wouldn't get anything from fucking health insurance and all that shit, and like all that abuse and all that he has to go through trying to fucking keep his son alive and healthy, and then ends up ODing and passing away. And then from there, it's an examination of grief of parents who lost their child, and the just everything, the guilt and the trauma and the pain. But then they also have, he had a younger brother, they have another son, and it's the three of them getting through it, learning to live with it. And then the story basically ends, I believe, at the younger brother's wedding. And it's sort of this idea of like getting through it. It's not, the closure or any of that bullshit. There's none of that stuff. But this is a man as a professor who he stood up there at the beginning of the year and basically said, this is the shape of life and the shape of stories. uses fictional stories to back up his point. Okay. Uses the story of the Holocaust to back up his point. Okay. And then if that's not enough, uses his own personal story of an own book that he wrote. And every single time he examined it like a professor, there was no trauma dumping or anything. He examined every single one with like this, with like just a genuine fascination of kind of his belief. And I think that was the semester that I realized I want to tell stories for a living. Yeah. And that was the one that did it.
From there, you transferred from UMass Dartmouth to Fitchburg State?
Yes.
And that's where we ended up meeting?
Yes, because my initial roommate was meant to be that kid that I grew up with who went to Fitchburg out of high school, went to Fitchburg. We were going to be roommates. And then at the very last minute was like, oh, I got kicked out. And I was like, you could have fucking told me. I'd already been there for a semester, actually. And I think he took a semester off, and then we were going to live together. And then he was like, yeah, I got kicked out. And I'm like, you could have told me that a year ago, pal. Again, so then I had this poor freshman having to deal with me when I was
I was so confused when I had a
drinking.
Senior.
Yeah, prime me at max levels of an alcoholic. And yeah.
And so you mentioned you were an alcoholic. What caused that? Was it school? Was
I'm Irish,
life?
buddy. Irish, it's what we do. No, I don't fuck. I don't know. Why do people have vices? I think everyone has a vice. I quit smoking weed when I was. I think the first time I took a tea break. You know what a tea break is?
I don't.
So if you smoke weed every single day for a long enough time, it stops really doing anything. And that's kind of where the argument is marijuana physically addictive or isn't it comes from, because it certainly in different ways feels like it is. Because if you smoke weed every day, you're then unable to sleep or hit REM cycle when you sleep. And I don't know. The idea is you have to take tea breaks. You have to take breaks for a couple of months where you're sober, and then the next time you smoke, it's going to be like the first time you get fucking baked as fuck, and it's awesome.
So it's a tolerance break?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think I had smoked for so long and done so many different, debaucherous things through my time at UMass and through the first beginning time of Fitchburg, that around the time that I met you was my first tea break. I didn't know what it was, but I didn't smoke that semester. And I don't know if weed is physically addicting or not, but I know that when you quit after doing it every single day, you're kind of fucked up. Dopamine, whether it's dopamine level, serotonin, or just the insomnia of it, I don't know. But alcohol is just a great numbing agent, where I feel like for me, something like marijuana, mushrooms, acid, anything kind of accentuates everything and just makes everything sharper. Alcohol just sort of dulls everything. And I think that's why it's so addictive, is because, life is kind of fucking hard for a lot of people. And just having a beer just sort of just takes the edge off, you know what I mean? And there's nothing like it. So I was drinking really heavily that semester. Then I started smoking again. Drinking goes away, continue to smoke for the next, year or two. And then it gets to the point where I realize how dissatisfied I am with myself and where I am in life. And especially the idea of like trying to be an artist. And I'm like, I'm not an artist. I'm somebody who writes some stuff, doesn't really finish it, and just gets high as fuck and just sort of pats myself on the back. And I don't fuck with that. So I gave it up. I got sober. I started taking my mental health more seriously. Got in therapy, started medication and everything, started taking every aspect of my life seriously. This is about a year before Nihilist Media happened. And Nihilist Media happens, and for the next, 4 or 5 years, things are all right, but I'm start drinking a lot, and my side hustle was bartending, which is something it's so addicting. The money is so addicting, and the adrenaline from it is so addicting. It starts as a side hustle, and then you're working 60 hours every week, and you're surrounded by alcohol. You're surrounded by functioning alcoholics. So, you're going to the industry spots at the end of every single shift, and those guys know you. They know that you tip really well, so they're giving you shit for free, and you fall into a lifestyle, and it's really hard to get out of that, because like you feel not fulfilled, but like you feel I don't know. I don't know, but it was I want to say like 2017 up to 2020 was just a gradual increase, and I also was putting a lot more pressure on myself. I wasn't happy. Outside of like You're on the Air, I think that was really the only thing I made that I was very proud of at that time. All these things that we talked about up to this point about like truth and being uncompromising and trying to like affect people, even if it's devastating, it can still help people. You know what I mean? I felt like a lot of that stuff wasn't there. I'll say with like You're on the Air, you never know with feedback. Everybody says, "Oh, I watched this, I loved it," or whatever. But I've had more than one person reach out to me about that film, and based on like things that they've been through, not to spoil the ending, but things that they've had to survive, saying, "I loved this. I really wish that this actually happened. I really wish that this was real." And they're seeing in Chris's performance something real in that. And even though it's such an abrasive and kind of misanthropic film, it's speaking truth to them, and in a way that can be comforting for a lot of people. At least it is for me in so many ways. I feel like that was kind of the one film I made at the time that felt like that. And I felt like I was just losing myself into a lifestyle. I was also, filming a lot of concerts at a time, which was an absolute blast. But the problem as a functioning alcoholic is I could film these crazy punk shows drunk and in like, my high heeled boots. And I could like film them while still in like a mosh pit. And it was a fucking blast, no doubt. But like everything was reinforcing this lifestyle. And I guess it makes sense because like I think back to like being, a kid, my earliest like idols and like the people that I, looked up to as artists, fucking Jimi Hendrix, fucking Hunter S. Thompson, Kurt Cobain. What is the thing that they all have in common? They all have, drugs or alcohol, and they all have a very kind of disdainful, misanthropic, depressive view of mankind as a species. And those are the things that resonated with me. And I felt like I was on that path. But those guys, they didn't make it. Ultimately, their vice is the thing that destroyed them. They're also a lot more talented than I am. So like I, 2020, so about 5 years ago, I'm working 2 jobs, both bar jobs. I'm doing the filmmaking thing. And then one day, I want to say it was March 15th, Ides of March. I wake up one day and then suddenly I'm unemployed because, everything shut down. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck am I going to do? Financially, I was living in Brighton. Financially, I was like well off enough that I had been planning that summer to like go back to the gym and get in better shape and all that, like I was when I was like bar backing, and started to get like a little healthier. And I knew my mind was like, if you get more ripped like you were a few years ago, you'll be able to drink more. And like I remember having that thought. Everything locks down. A day or two later, my buddy Brett, career bartender, texts me, and he's like, "Lockdown party at my apartment. Let's go." And I go, and his apartment is packed with like 15 to 20 different people, former coworkers, but all industry people. all there to get absolutely obliterated and to get stoned as fuck because they're all unemployed and the state of Massachusetts is about to pay all of us to stay home. I think it may have like the initial unemployments may have just gotten approved or something. I don't remember exactly. I get drunk, and I end up having to take care of two of my coworkers, one of which bought acid off of me. And he takes like one or two of them and he's like, I want another one. And I'm like, do you know how LSD works? You're going to have to fucking wait a minute. And he's like, he hands me the money and I'm like, well, I don't have morals. So I sell him more. And then he makes a comment. He's like, you got to be more stealth when you hand those to me because my girlfriend wouldn't appreciate it. And I realized the girl sitting next to him for like, is his girlfriend? And I'm like, maybe introduce her next time instead of saying like, this is your coworker. She was introduced as his coworker. I'm like, what do you?
So they're deep in love, basically.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know. And then he starts getting fucked up, and then he's handing me his cigarettes, and he's like, you need to hide these because she doesn't like it when I smoke. I'm like, well, how does she feel about the acid that you're on? And then we end up outside. He keeps being like, hey man, I need my cigarettes. Let's go. And we would go out on his porch of my buddy's house, and he's smoking cigarettes, and then and I'm smoking cigarettes too, and I only smoke when I'm drunk and annoyed. And he's out there yelling about what a bitch she is, and like how another guy who's there is a mutual coworker, and he's in love with her, and he's going to her and talking about all this fucking shit about me, blah 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 blah. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm just permanent. I'm just Zuko from Avatar. I'm just like, yeah, man, that's rough, buddy. Like that's, I don't know, man. And I'm consoling him until they leave. And I guess then they get back to his place, and then the acid actually starts to take effect, and he's going crazy. And then the girlfriend is calling my buddy Brett and being like, I need you to like come get him. And he's like, no, I'm not. We're grown ass adults. Like, I'm sorry that he's loaded up on acid, but I'm not. No, fuck off. And while that's going on, Brett, smokes up one of our other coworkers, who I guess doesn't smoke weed. She's just like, yeah, whatever. And then she leaves. She goes home. I go home. I'm sitting down in my bed. My phone rings, and it's her because she was calling Brett, and he put his phone on silent because of the previous thing. And she's like, I think I'm ODing. Now, I don't know how much weed you've ever smoked, but anyone who's ever been too high knows that it feels wrong, like your body's shutting down and you think you're ODing. This is something that people usually go through when they're 17, not in their mid-30s. But she's like, I think I'm ODing. And I'm like, listen, you're not overdosing. I have smoked so much weed in my life. I quit smoking weed, but listen, breathe. And I'm talking to her on the phone, and she's like, like she's giving birth.
Hypervent.
And I'm like, listen, just breathe slowly. Just listen to my voice. And I'm like, do you have water? And she's like, yeah, I have water. And I'm just like, just breathe, until she like calms down somewhat. And I have no problem doing that for someone. She's a good friend. No problem doing that. I wake up in the morning with a splitting headache. And I'm like, you know what? Since the fucking gym is closed, I know what I'm going to do while I'm unemployed. I'm not going to fucking drink. I'm just not going to I'm fucking sick of this shit. And I was a social drinker and everything, going out to bars and stuff. So like for the next like 6 months, there are a lot of people I'm friends with and everything, industry people getting paid money to stay home. They're taking that $600 a week and spending it on alcohol because what do they have to do but like lay around and get drunk because everything was shut down. I made a decision to save that money, and I sort of refound myself. I found that like I'm actually a very introverted person and was living the life of an extrovert, but
Was that due to alcohol?
I was using alcohol as what they call a social lubricant.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with being a bartender is you have to be a career extrovert. Alcohol helps with that. Even if you're not drunk, like, when you're using substances and stuff, you can kind of just sort of coast, even if you're sober. I started playing like old video games again. I hadn't played video games in fucking years and everything because there's a stigma around it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, this is actually awesome. And I'm reconnecting with old friends and stuff. People that are like I have old friends that are like making their Instagram story the loading screen to the fucking Sims 2, and I'm like, yo, you played the Sims 2? I played the shit out. I'm like, I'm playing that game right now. I last played this game in like 2006. This is amazing. Then my buddy Brett, who I mentioned, due to that same evening, was independent of me, had the same thought, and he's like, I'm gonna go easy on the alcohol. So then over the next few months, me and him continue to get together, but we're becoming very different people in a good way. For both of us, just significantly less angry, less frustrated at the world, for me, like less blaming other people because I haven't blown up yet. I haven't gotten fucking rich yet. I haven't made my own feature film yet, which is still a dream of mine. And yeah, I mean, every week or two, I would go down to one of the bars that I had been bartending that had reopened, but was keeping me on unemployment, thankfully, because the bar hadn't reopened. It's called Auto Pizza across the street from Coolidge Corner. And I remember after like 2 months or something, going to get a pizza, seeing my old manager, and he's like, "How you been?" And I'm like, "Dude, I haven't been sober now for 2 months." And he looked at me like horrified. He's like, "You?" He's like, "You?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, can you believe it?" I'm like, I feel like I found a cheat code in life because everything just started. My body just started to feel healthier, and my mental state started to feel better, and my thoughts, the internal narrative and everything, all that shit you need as a writer, supposedly, started to get more and more complex. And I started to like kind of, I don't know, find myself that, or find a version of myself that I hadn't known since I was like in high school or something. And I was like, I wanted to do 6 months sober. And by the time I got to 6 months, I'm like, I just don't want to drink. I have no desire to drink.
And you did this all on your own, no help.
Well, I think
I know you got to have your support system. That's what I mean. Like, you didn't have to do any programs, no rehab.
No. I had done. I had occasionally gone to groups years earlier. But more, I guess, more of a voyeuristic thing. But no. In 2020, it was. I hate to say it was easy, but there was few instances of alcohol withdrawal. And that usually had to be with being around people that I didn't like, that I was friends with because they were drinking buddies. Being around them sober made me realize, like, oh, I don't actually like this person. They give me anxiety, usually because of like bigotry or something, just shittiness, ugliness. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't really me. I had to kind of learn that and set some boundaries and stuff, and kind of also become that person who like doesn't go out to every single thing and stay out all night like I used to be. I was always that person. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I did anything in my life without help, but yeah, I didn't have a formal sort of structure. I will say at about the 6-month mark was when Chris Salvi quit drinking, who again, I make jokes about. He's one of my best friends, and from there, like me and him, to this day still have a lot of in-depth conversations about drinking and about being sober and everything. So like, I certainly do have a support system, same thing with Marco, who, quit drinking sometime after that. But yeah, for the first 6 months, it was just, my support system was writing, and it was playing The Sims, honestly.
Who knew The Sims could get you sober?
Yeah, right. I mean, I feel like usually, especially the older ones, because those are really hard. I feel like they would drive you to drink.
So, congratulations on your sobriety. How long has it been?
What's today? So, are you
19th of February?
So in say 4 weeks, it'll be 5 years.
Congratulations.
But I feel like it's been, again, like 5 months. It'll work.
So, what are some things that you think the general public should know about filmmaking, and I guess what's not public or common knowledge out there?
I mean, I think I touched on this earlier, but the idea of that it's made by one person. I mean, I guess Bo Burnham made a feature film in his apartment during lockdown or something, but with few exceptions, it's always a collaboration. Something like Third Eye is where I had definitely too much creative control because I was able to explore every fucked up idea, and that film wouldn't have happened without, Sherry or Chris or any of the actors, without John or Benson, and certainly without Totem or Matt, who did the music, and Matt did all the special effects and all that, without Marissa with the VFX. I don't know how to do any of that fucking shit. You know what I mean? I suppose I could throw on a wig and fucking put a hole in my head, but like, I'm not an actor, I think that's the most important thing. I feel like we live in a time of like just overstimulation. I also think maybe that's where alcohol can help with that. But because like you can go on Instagram or TikTok or something and go on an adventure, and if you just watch reels for fucking 20 minutes, you feel like you've just experienced like I don't even know what.
It's like you learn something, you traveled everywhere.
Yeah, but you retain none of it.
Yeah.
And
so quick, right?
Yeah. So like to quote someone significantly smarter than me, Scorsese talks about the difference between shooting digitally versus shooting on film. Digitally, I could film you. I could go in that room over there, upload the footage. I could film you from 3 different angles and layer it all on top, throw some fades on it, or a match cut or whatever, and be like, say I throw a fade over it, and I'm like, say it's a picture of Ross walking, and or it's a video of Ross walking, and then it fades to the fucking you walking in an extreme wide shot as the sun is coming down, and I could do a fade, and I can look at that, and I can be like, now what if the fade was 5 seconds long? All right, cool. Then I can see what that looks like. What if the fade is 2 seconds long? I can see what that looks like. What if instead of a fade, it was a match cut? I can delete the fade, make it a match cut. You get that instant feedback, which is, in most ways, a good thing. With film, oftentimes you couldn't even review the footage right after you shot it, so you had to trust it was good. And then in the editing room, Scorsese would say, like, what about that match cut? The editor would do the match cut, and then you would have to send it off to get developed. And then you would have to wait a week before you could see if that match cut worked, or if it should have been a fade, how long the fade should have been. And every single time you do this, again, takes time, and time is money. And he's like, obviously digital is better in so many ways, but it used to be that every time you made a decision, you had to really believe in that decision, because it was taking a amount of time before you could see if you made the right decision or not, which I think is an important skill set to have. And I feel like it also applies to watching art, film or TV or listening to music or whatever, is like to listen to something and to sit there and then like really think about what it meant and really sort of process it. Like I said earlier about like something like Seven, Clockwork Orange. A book that I read for the first time last Halloween was Pet Sematary. I never wanted to because of the subject matter, but I'm glad I did. That movie or that book had me fucked up for like a month after that. I was like staring off into space and shit. I think that's like what art is supposed to be. There's art and there's entertainment, and one is not better than the other one. The best kind of go hand in hand, but yeah, I mean, I think to take something in and to then think about it and to then like maybe go back to it. I remember when I was in high school, I watched The Shining for the first time, and yeah, it was supposed to be the fucking scariest movie of all time, right? Like, it has that reputation. I got one of my friends to come over and watch it. I'm just like, oh no, this is the scariest fucking movie of all time. It's fucking crazy, you know. This fucking blah 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 blah. We watch it, great movie. I'm like, then it ends, and you're like, well, what the fuck was that? What the fuck? Like, what the fuck? The fuck did any of that mean? And then you're kind of like, I don't know if I like that. And then without rewatching it for the next few months, I keep thinking about it, and you're like, what did that mean? Like, was it haunted? Were they just crazy? Did they have cabin fever? Was it a combination? You're thinking about specific things, and it's like, well, I think they're all crazy because they all saw different sort of ghosts. So it's like their psychosis was their own personal thing, and it was, you know, three things, and then you're like, but how did he unlock the freezer door and get out at the end if it wasn't the ghosts? How the fuck did that? Like, what the fuck? Because the door was locked. Who let him out if it wasn't haunted? What the fuck? And I'm not rewatching the movie, but I'm replaying it. I'm like, what did that fucking mean? And then I watch it 6 months later, and it's the scariest fucking movie I've ever seen. Because like so many things I had thought are coming true. So many things I thought it's like it's way better than what I imagined, and there's scenes that I forgot about. And I feel like I have this relationship with this film, and I feel like I have this relationship with the people that made it. You know, even which is so cool because Kubrick's dead. You know, and it's like I feel like I'm this man who is dead is still able to affect me and communicate with me. And that's a film I've watched in its entirety at least 25 times. I feel like every time I watch it, I hyper focus on a specific aspect of it. And I think that's something that we've lost, where you could, you know, it's just hypothetically say Netflix, not that Netflix has great movies, but you could watch Netflix, you could put on Netflix, you could watch The Shining, you could be like, oh, that was dope. And then immediately The Witch is playing, and then BoJack Horseman is playing, and you know, then you're in the 90s and you're a cartoon horse, and then fucking Arrested Development is playing, and you're a fucking magician and your mom hates you, and like you're just fucking going and shit, and like we've all done it, and it's cool, but like things aren't hitting the way that they used to be, where, you know, you watching a movie was a big fucking deal, and it was maybe something you could do once a week if you were lucky. Yeah,
it's the way people consume the media.
Yeah.
You're just instantly getting it. You don't have time to process, really think about it, discuss it with peers.
Consumption is like the big word, right? And not to get all, you know, Fight Clubby, we're like, oh, we're fucking consumers, we're fucking pieces of shit. Yeah, so no, but like, I don't know. I think that, like, you know, it's better to slow down and to try to process things. You know, what was something I watched recently that was like, well, I guess I can give you one example. This was a year or two ago. When I was a teenager, I watched Batman Begins and The Dark Knight probably at least 100 times each, like most people. But I got burnt out of it. And then Dark Knight Rises comes out, and it's like, all right, now it's done. I can move on with my life. Last time I watched those movies, 2012, 2013. Then let's say it's 10 years later, and I decide to give it a rewatch. And I had seen the movie so many times, but I had forgotten so much of it that, like, I watched Batman Begins, and I'm like, that's a really great fucking movie, you know? And with those movies, too, because they're so memed, understandably, because of the fucking voice, you know, where are they, you know, all that shit. You remember it, and like Nolan is famous for kind of like doing dumb things and stuff, you know, plot convenience things, because he does these huge movies. You remember them as being really good, but you mostly remember the memes, and you remember it being ridiculously over the top and like, what the fuck. Then I watched Batman Begins. I'm like, that was a really good fucking movie. It's heartfelt. You felt like a connection to the character, you know. And then I put on Dark Knight. I was watching it at work overnight, and that movie is 2.5 hours, and there's so much about it that I forgot. But like the biggest thing from like the first frame he's in the movie is how fucking terrifying the Joker is, right? Because we all know every scene he's in, and then we know all the impressions of him. You know, we know every fucking emo kid's little fucking impression of the Joker. And then we know the bad Joker, the Jared Leto Joker, like the fucking horrible caricatures of all this shit, you know. And you forget that at the root of this is, in my opinion, one of the best acting performances I've ever seen. And it's not because, oh, he's acting crazy. It's that in his performance, he's not crazy. He's fucking terrifying. This is like every second he's on frame, like I had like chills where I'm like, this guy is terrifying. And every other aspect of the movie is great too. And I'm watching it, and there's a part like before the midway point where Harvey kidnaps one of the Joker's goons, and he brings him to like a dark alleyway, and he puts a gun in his face, and he's like flipping the coin. And it's like it's a double-headed coin, right? So it's like he's not actually going to shoot him, but we don't know that. I don't think we know that at the time. But I completely forgot all about the scene. He like abducts this guy, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? He's fucking got the gun in his fucking face. He's flipping the coin. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? How do I not remember this? And he flips the coin up, and Batman catches it. And I'm like, oh, that was cool. And then Batman is like, you're going to hold a press conference tomorrow. Why? Nobody else is going to die on my watch. And he's saying, I'm going to take the mask off. I'm going to confess. I'm going to give it up, you know? And he's like, Gotham is in your hands now. And he walks away. Or he's Batman, so he probably just teleports away. But it holds on Dent, and he's like screaming. He's like, you can't give in. You can't give in. And I'm like, what the fuck? This is about politics? Like, what the fuck? This is so intense. Like, why is this all just cranked to fucking 12 out of 10? But I had this moment where after he's like yelling, you can't, it like actually woke me up. And I realized, again, I'm at work. I have been sitting in front of my laptop, not moving for like an hour and a half. Like, I'm like, I don't know if I remembered to breathe. Like, the movie was that intense. It sucked me in that much. And then, I mean, the second half of the movie is even better than the first. And then, you know, it ends and like you have chills. You know, the whole ending of that movie just gives you fucking chills. And after that, I mean, I was like thinking about it for like days where I'm like, this movie I've seen so many times because like, I'm like, I watched it so many times, I forgot that it was actually an impactful piece of art that said something about like the world that we live in. Yeah, it's a fucking huge ass blockbuster and all that shit, but it was actually saying something about terrorism and about you know, society and about politics. And it's so impactful, and it's like every single person has seen The Dark Knight, and everybody knows the story and all that, and we're all like, yeah, you know, Heath is great, blah blah blah. But you lose sight of like appreciating like what it was actually saying, you know, and I mean that's just even more true for, you know, I don't know, fucking Taxi Driver, right? And like, I mean, The Deer Hunter, you know, Apocalypse Now. Again, I mean any piece of art is, you know, it's that appreciation, and that's something I have to remind myself to like slow down and not binge watch TV shows. Don't watch 3 movies back to back to back. You know, you can do it with like the superhero ones.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, that's it. That's kind of my big thing.